Welcome to the Bro Code Podcast. Join Kennedy Lucas, Terry Lester, and Jackson Smith as they break down the biggest plays, share locker room banter, and keep it 100 on sports hot takes. Gear up, because this is where the real talk begins.
Broadcasting live across the airwaves and streaming straight to your speakers.
Gear
It is
up.
Monday, July 28th, 2025, and you're now tuned into the show where real ones speak. Culture leads the convo and the code. Welcome to the Bro Code Podcast, the ultimate urban talk experience built for the bold, the unapologetic, and the truth seekers of this generation. This isn't just a show, it's a movement, it's a mindset, and it's a mic drop waiting to happen. Let's talk the latest stories on the NFL. In 2018, John Davis had no choice but to go against his beliefs. As the football coach for Naples Middle High School, a school for military dependents in Gricignano di Aversa, Campania, Italy, he had never started a freshman on offense. He had had freshmen on the roster, sometimes 5 to 6 who rarely saw the field unless the game was out of hand. But 14-year-old Ashton Ginty forced Davis to think differently. Ginty had been in Italy since he was 12 because his father, Harry, was a commanding officer on the naval support base in Aversa, a small town near Naples. Even though the school didn't offer tackle football to middle school students, Davis was enamored by Ginty's athletic ability in sports such as basketball and track. He recalled Ginty beating high school kids in sprints, and one day, Davis watched Ginty nearly throw down a dunk on the basketball court. That took a lot of power for a kid who was maybe 5'6" and 12 or 13 years old to explode like that. Davis, 54, told ESPN, "Most kids don't even get to do that when they are 18. At Naples, the talent varied with kids rotating in and out of the base yearly. Some players had prior knowledge of football, while others were soccer players seeking a new challenge. As a result, Davis never relied on the same offensive scheme. But when Ginty, who was born in Jacksonville, Florida, joined the squad, Davis' game plan was simple: give him the ball by any means necessary. During one of the Wildcats' early practices, Ginty displayed his power, flattening a senior linebacker. From that moment, Davis knew Ginty was the real deal. "I was putting my money on him before the season started. He put that kid right on his butt," recalled Davis, who has coached at Naples since 2016. Ginty was a man among boys, Davis said. He traveled across Europe, dominating competition on military bases in Spain, Germany, and Belgium. The closest road game was a 9-hour bus ride. And since the field on the naval support base didn't have lights, Ginty played home games at the nearby Carney Park Military Recreational Facility, located within the crater of an extinct volcano. He put his team on his back weekly. He guided the Wildcats to a 6-0 record while recording 1,223 yards and 21 touchdowns. Davis would have loved for Ginty to stay at Naples for the next 3 seasons. In a sense, he was the team's security blanket. Whenever the Wildcats needed a winning drive, they knew Ginty would deliver. But Davis.
NBA offseason grades. How every team fared before 2025 to 26 season. With the bulk of the NBA's offseason moves complete, it's time to evaluate how teams did. As ESPN's Tim Bontom and Bobby Marks laid out last week, there are a handful of storylines to watch the rest of the summer, including the restricted free agents locked in apparent standoffs with their current teams and potential extensions. It's also possible we could get a surprise trade. Barring that, most of the moves that will affect the 2025 to 26 season have already been made, with virtually all the top unrestricted free agents having already signed contracts, and blockbuster deals have turned the Houston Rockets and Orlando Magic into contenders in their respective conferences. My grades aren't just about how much teams improved or declined, but more on how well they use the tools at their disposal, with a focus on free agency and trades because the outcome of the draft is more difficult to predict. Although most teams end up in the fat part of the curve center on the B range, I did award 2 A's and 1 F involving teams on opposite sides of the summer's most lopsided trade. The Hawks vaulted themselves into the ranks of legit East threats by nabbing one of the top free agents to change teams, former Minnesota Timberwolves guard Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and adding Kristaps Porzingis to give them more size up front. Yet, the real coup was adding the better of 2026 first-round picks from the Milwaukee Bucks and New Orleans Pelicans on draft night to move down 10 spots from no, 13 to no, 23. Even if Atlanta remains stuck in the play-in, potentially adding another lottery pick to a core that includes 2024 no, One pick Zachary Rizicher is a franchise-changing opportunity for a Hawks team that swapped its own pick to the San Antonio Spurs in the DeJounte Murray trade. The upside is the Celtics managed to balance their books without giving up any future first-round picks, getting under the second apron with a plausible path to avoiding the tax altogether in a gap year following Jason Tatum's Achilles rupture. The downside is Boston shed a massive amount of talent, including everyone taller than 6'8" who played at least 13 minutes in the 2025 playoffs. The Celtics will be challenged to replenish their front court depth and, crucially, the versatility lost with Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. Given the Nets' commanding position as the only team with more than $30 million in cap space this summer, their return has been underwhelming. Brooklyn did net a 2032 unprotected first-rounder from Denver and can hope to rehabilitate Michael Porter Jr.'s value. The Nets also landed the no. 22 pick with Terrence Mann prior to draft, but keeping all 5 first-round picks and using them largely on players whose games don't seem complementary was confusing. Brooklyn still can create $20 plus million in cap space, and we'll see whether additional deals materialize before training camp. The Hornets should be more competitive in 2025 to 26 after finding playmakers to supplement LaMelo Ball. Charlotte's offense collapsed without Ball last season, which doesn't figure continue with the additions of veterans Spencer Dinwiddie and Colin Sexton and the return of Trey Mann. And no, for pick Con Newpel, MVP of the Summer League Championship game, should help the Hornets shooting immediately. I like the Bulls bringing back Trey Jones on a 3-year, $24 million contract with a team option on the final season. Chicago could also get more out of wing Isaac Okoro after getting him from Cleveland for Ball. Still, the Bulls shouldn't be content with largely staying the course after 3 consecutive play-in losses. And although I'm high on no, 12 pick Noah Essing, Chicago would have been better off making the same draft night deal Atlanta did with New Orleans. We'll see how much the Cavaliers get from Lonzo Ball, limited to 35 games last season by wrist injuries after 2.5 years off the court due to his left knee. Ball was a low-cost pickup for Cleveland to help replace Ty Jerome, lost to help manage the Cavaliers' sizable tax bill. So too was bringing back Larry Nance Jr. as a third center. Despite the loss of Jerome, Cleveland looks like the favorite to win the East. Dallas doesn't get credit for picking Cooper Flagg, a move any team would have made after winning the lottery. The Mavericks did well in landing D'Angelo Russell, armed only with their taxpayer mid-level in free agency after agreeing to a new contract with a smaller starting salary for injured point guard Kyrie Irving. But Dallas still has a surplus in its front court, having opted not to make any trades involving veteran players thus far. That likely pushes Flagg and PJ Washington to perimeter roles. After the dust cleared, Denver's offseason resulted in the strongest Nuggets team on paper since they won the 2023 title, highlighted by swapping Michael Porter Jr. for Cameron Johnson at the cost of a valuable 2032 unprotected first-rounder. The payroll flexibility the deal created helped the Nuggets heist Jonas Valanciunas from the Kings, shedding little-used Dario Saric. And Denver beefed up its perimeter depth by signing Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. to minimum contracts. The Pistons' offseason changed dramatically when ESPN's Shams Charania reported that guard Malik Beasley was under investigation by federal authorities in connection with a gambling probe. After All-Star Cade Cunningham, Beasley might have been Detroit's second-best player last season, and the late pivot limited the Pistons' options to replace him in free agency. They landed Duncan Robinson to supply the shooting Beasley provided and Karis LeVert for shot creation off the bench, but the result is likely a weaker Detroit second unit. Having merely added a pair of picks in the 50s, Richard and Alex Tui, the Warriors are impossible to evaluate until they figure out the status of restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga. If Golden State indeed signs veteran center Al Horford and brings back guard DeAnthony Melton, as ESPN's Anthony Slater reported is possible, that would be a solid summer build on last season's strong finish after the Jimmy Butler trade. For now, all of that remains on hold. No team did more to improve its chances at the 2026 title than the Rockets, who added 2-time Finals MVP Kevin Durant, without sacrificing depth in the process. Give Houston credit for pouncing at a reasonable trade for Durant, then using a team-friendly contract for Fred VanVleet, 2 years, $50 million, to access the non-taxpayer mid-level exception that allowed the Rockets to add proven three, and D-wing Dorian Finney-Smith to help replace departed Dylan Brooks. It's possible we'll look back and think the Pacers were better off not paying Miles Turner through his mid-30s, but there are no banners for fiscal responsibility, and Indiana lost a key piece to a starting five that relied more on fit than sheer talent. The Pacers have no clear replacement for Turner. Although I like taking a flyer on Jay Huff, who has a similar skill set, expecting him to start after falling out of Memphis' playoff rotation is unrealistic. Indiana's other traditional centers, Tony Bradley, Isaiah Jackson, and James Wiseman, are also career backups. There are concerns about the Clippers' age after adding veterans Chris Paul, 40, Brook Lopez, 37, and Bradley Beal, 32. For the Clippers to land all three armed only with the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, however, is a win. The Clippers bolstered their depth in the short term and added size with a trade for John Collins, while keeping an eye on cap space possibilities. As soon as next summer, with 2027 a more likely target to retool the roster with younger talent. The Lakers are an interesting contrast to their crosstown rivals offseason. Building around 26-year-old Luka Doncic, the Lakers added Jake LaRavia, 23, the youngest unrestricted free agent to change teams for more than the minimum, plus DeAndre Ayton, who recently turned 27. Marcus Smart, 31, is the Lakers' oldest newcomer. The Lakers' additions weren't as effective last season as the Clippers, but the new Lakers stand a better chance of being long-term contributors. The biggest question about the Lakers' offseason is what that approach means for 40-year-old superstar LeBron James. However, James has little leverage after exercising his player option. It's more important for the Lakers to persuade Doncic to sign an extension when he becomes eligible this weekend. The Grizzlies might take a step back in a loaded West after trading starting guard Desmond Bane, but long-term, Memphis was wise to get 4 first-round picks in return, including a coveted 2026 pick, most likely from the Phoenix Suns. Adding Jerome on a value contract helps replace Bane's shooting and shot creation, and the Grizzlies were able to sign Jaren Jackson Jr. to an extension that pays him less than he could have made next summer as an unrestricted free agent. It was an opportunistic offseason for the Heat, who took advantage of the money saved by swapping Duncan Robinson for Simone Fontecchio to convert players on the fringes of their rotation into Norman Powell, who scored 21.8 points per game for the Clippers last season. Powell helps replace some of the scoring lost with Jimmy Butler's February departure and keeps Miami's books clear, for now, as the team eyes 2027 cap space. No, the Bucks stretching Damian Lillard's salary over the next 5 years to create cap room and sign Miles Turner away from the Pacers, the top player to change teams in free agency, isn't likely to result in Milwaukee contending, but at least gives the Bucks a chance this season with a power vacuum in the East due to injuries and Giannis Antetokounmpo still playing at a top 5 level. Milwaukee did creative work to bring back the rest of last season's core, albeit at the cost of handing out player options like party favors. A whopping $5 got 2026 to 27 options, which could complicate next summer's roster building. After trading Towns, the Timberwolves were able to manage their payroll to bring back the bulk of the team that has reached the past 2 conference finals. A new contract for Julius Randle means he and Dante DiVincenzo get a combined $43 million, far less than the $53 million Towns will make. Minnesota did have to let Alexander Walker leave via sign-in trade, opting instead to prioritize 2023 the 24-6 Man award winner Naz Reid. Reid's 5-year, $125 million contract could be an overpay if he is unable to grow beyond a bench role. The Hawks-Pelicans draft night swap was seemingly the most lopsided transaction of the summer. It could pay off for New Orleans, but it was far too risky to be sensible, particularly in the context of the Pelicans' other moves. New Orleans is betting on Jordan Poole being a playoff-caliber starting point guard and has overloaded its depth chart at center by drafting Derek Queen and signing veteran Kevin Looney. Just 3 West teams have longer odds of winning the conference at ESPN BET, and the Pelicans traded away their safety net now that they no longer control their 2026 first-round pick. After adding Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns last offseason, the Knicks had limited room to maneuver this summer. Getting Gershon Abuse will take ever so slightly less than the entirety of their taxpayer mid-level exception allowed New York to upgrade its second unit front court and still fill out its bench with veterans' minimum contracts. One of those veterans, Jordan Clarkson, signed after reaching a buyout with the Utah Jazz, gives the Knicks more athleticism off the bench than in signed backup guards Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet. The defending champs return every player who saw at least 50 minutes of action during the 2025 playoffs. So the real work for the Thunder front office was securing long-term extensions for star-shy Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. A supermax deal for Gilgeous-Alexander and max deals for Holmgren and Williams will force tough choices for Oklahoma City. But the Thunder did well to sign Holmgren to a deal locked in at 25% of the 2026-27 cap and avoid giving Williams a player option on his extension. Dealing for Bane looks better for Orlando in the wake of the East opening up. The Magic have a realistic chance to claim home court advantage in the first round for the first time since 2011. Orlando getting backup point guard Tyus Jones on a one-year, $7 million deal was also a nice add. The Magic will have far more backcourt cover after going 21-26 in the 47-game starter Jalen Suggs missed last season. After last summer was highlighted by signing 9-time All-Star Paul George, an addition that went south, perhaps a quiet offseason for the best. Still, it's surprising Philadelphia is bringing back 10 players from last season's roster, with restricted free agent Quentin Grimes likely to bring that total to 11. The 76ers are counting on better health and improved front court depth rather than making significant changes to the roster. Like Milwaukee, Phoenix put a massive amount of dead salary on its books with a buyout for the final 2 years of Bradley Beal's contract. After dealing Kevin Durant, the Suns can't realistically contend. Even making the playoffs will be a stretch in the West. But they have flipped their roster in a younger direction with 3 2025 draft picks, having started the summer with none, and 23-year-old center Mark Williams, acquired via trade. It was an eventful summer for Blazers, who dealt for Drew Holiday, made the draft's most interesting pick in Chinese center Yang Hansen, and reunited with franchise icon Damian Lillard. Adding 2 veteran all-star guards could crowd Portland's backcourt when Lillard returns from an Achilles rupture, likely in 2026-27. And the Blazers still haven't found a new home for forward Jeremy Grant, who was surpassed in the rotation last season by younger Denny Avdija and Tamani Kamara. A curious offseason didn't seem to move the Kings closer to a playoff return. Prioritizing point guard after trading to Aaron Fox in February was reasonable, but Sacramento gave Dennis Schroeder a 3-year, $45 million deal that might not age while given Schroeder's reliance on quickness. That deal forced the Kings to swap Jonas Valanciunas for Dario Saric, who barely played last season, to stay out of luxury tax. Sacramento might have been better off targeting a point guard on a cheaper deal, such as Trey Jones, or letting Valanciunas leave for a reported offer from Greek power Olympiakos and getting out of his deal altogether. The Spurs don't get bonus points for jumping up to no, 2 in the lottery, and drafting Rutgers guard Dylan Harper. However, San Antonio did well upgrading its front court with veterans Luke Kornet and Kelly Olynyk. With a training camp to integrate De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama's rapid growth, the Spurs should improve this season and still have the draft picks to make another big swing to build out their core. A deadline deal for Brandon Ingram turned out to be Toronto's big offseason move. Given how little cap space was available, Ingram was wise to lock in a 3-year, $120 million deal after the trade. Over the tax line, the Raptors merely swapped out and signed Chris Boucher for Sandro Mamukelashvili and drafted Colin Murray-Boyles at no. 9. The result is a roster that still doesn't look like a top 6 team in the East with limited financial flexibility, particularly after a rich extension for center Jakob Poeltl. After hiring Austin Ainge as president of basketball operations, the Jazz firmly picked a direction. Utah sent out veterans Clarkson, Collins, and Sexton, meaning they'll no longer appear on lengthy injury reports to create playing time for Utah's young talent. The Jazz likely waited too long to move on from Clarkson and Sexton, forcing Utah to give up a second-round pick in the process. Still ahead, a key decision on center Walker Kessler, who's eligible for a rookie extension through October. A series of trades cleaned up Washington's books for massive cap space in summer 2026, while also taking low-cost flyers on recent first-round picks. Including this year's picks Trey Johnson and Will Riley, the Wizards now have an incredible 10 players drafted in the first round since 2023. Corey Kispert is the only veteran Washington has under contract for 2026 to 27, meaning the Wizards could have $80 million in cap space after trading Jordan Poole for C.J. McCollum's expiring contract.
Okay, so coming up here on the Bro Code Podcast, of course, our official sports show where you get the latest in sports news. Now, we have a kind of a sort of announcement from, of course, Colorado University's head coach, Deion Sanders. Coach Prime is what everybody will call him, of course. Look, he's going through a lot of great titles and a lot of great successes amid his status. But of course, we have this video that we're going to play presented by ESPN. And of course, Deion Sanders is announcing that unfortunately he has bladder cancer. Of course, very, very sad for Deion Sanders to announce bladder cancer battle between him and his health, because he does want to perform at Colorado University for another title, another season. And this is the press conference that they have planned. So we'll play this right now.
I'm pleased to report that the results from the surgery are that he is cured from the cancer.
You can clap, it's okay. Get checked out.
Now, this Deion Sanders, trying to get some volume here.
Another gathering, if I had. I'm thankful. It's been a tremendous journey. It's been tough. I think I dropped 25 pounds.
Now, it says here he battled and he beat bladder cancer.
You know, and just dealing with the catheter, dealing with all the stuff that I had to deal with. And right now I'm still dealing with going to the bathroom. Like, it's a whole life change. Like, I can't, and I'm going to be transparent, I can't pee like I used to pee. It's totally different. It was some scenes that you saw, all the bull junk that transpired on draft day. It wasn't just that. It was just, I knew as well, I had a surgery coming up. My sons, to this day, don't know what transpired. I just told them something with my foot. Again, because I wanted them to focus on making the team and not focused on dad. So they really don't know my daughters do. And this joker right here, just loved my son, Junior, who have not left my side since. And I wanted to be here with my team. I wanted to see the new talent that we brought in. I wanted to see them work, see them train, coach them. And I couldn't. But slowly but surely, I built myself back up to where I'm able, I'm strong, I'm ready. I'm still probably about 12 pounds down. I'm gonna get that right. I'm gonna fill these overalls up like no other. But it has been a tremendous journey, and I'm truly thankful that God is so good. God is so good.
Yes, he is all the time. You can really see the emotion in Deion Sanders, folks. Like I said, I'm very, very happy that he beat the bladder cancer battle when it comes down to Deion Sanders. Let me tell you something about Coach Prime. Like it or hate him, he is one of the biggest coaches of the college support series so far. Deion Sanders, I think he's going to be around the collegiate level for a very, very long time. Will he has an opportunity to go back to the National Football League, the NFL? Probably, maybe, but it feels good to see that a coach of his stature, Coach Prime, been able to beat bladder cancer. It sounds very, very painful. He did say, God is so great, and I know we're a sports show, but I'll be remiss if I didn't say that I agree with that statement. God is so good. I do think God work in some mysterious ways for a lot of people. I'm very, very happy about this simply because it's something that you could tell that I could tell that he's a very supportive dad, right? He had a big cancer like this, and he kept it quiet from the boys, right? Because he wanted the boys to focus on their college level, focus on that college series, that football season. I'm very, very happy about that because the way he said it was something with his foot, right? But turns out it was something much worse. But it feels good to see that he was able to beat it. Of course, he overwent surgery and he was able to get the tumor removed from the bladder cancer battle, and he looks healthy. He looks strong. I do say that I do pray for him, because going to the bathroom is one of the most essential things that, everybody could do and need to do. And to see that he's still having some troubles with him going to the bathroom, I think he's going to get even better. He's going to get even stronger. He's going to get even more healthier as time passes on. It feels so good. I just hate it that, you have somebody who is not only famous, right, but, love the sport of football, love the sport of coaching, and something like that, he has to be put on hold because of this thing, and he was able to concentrate on the game and just kind of weave out the battle of the bladder cancer, so that way he can focus on the season. I can't wait to see what Colorado University does within their season. I'm happy for Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. I think there's a very, very blessing for that, and I'm just glad that he was able to beat that bladder cancer. I just can't imagine, T. I just can't imagine the amount of pain that he might have went in and overdid. So congratulations to Coach Deion Sanders for beating that cancer battle.
The NHL free agency frenzy has given way to the serene waters of Canadian lake cottages, where many team executives are clearing their minds as training camps creep closer. The unrestricted free agent pool is essentially a shallow creek with very few impactful free agents. But Puckpedia calculates that all but 7 NHL teams have at least $1 million to spend on their rosters, while 11 teams, ranging from the rebuilding Chicago Blackhawks to the contending Carolina Hurricanes to whatever the Pittsburgh Penguins are, have north of $10 million of cap space. That's not accounting for the salary cap space that could be added via trades, like the one the Vancouver Canucks made recently, sending forward Dakota Joshua to the Toronto Maple Leafs and clearing $3.25 million off their cap. Here's a look at some of the unrestricted free agents and the impact they could have with a new team. All contract information is courtesy of Puckpedia, easily the most tantalizing player left in free agency. Roslovic played 81 games for the Carolina Hurricanes last season, generating 22 goals and 17 assists in 13:49 of average ice time. His goal total matched his career high he set with the Columbus Blue Jackets in 2020-21. He's an instant offense player. His defense is another story. According to Evolving Hockey, he was the second worst forward on the Hurricanes in even-strength goals allowed above average, behind Andrei Svechnikov. And Roslovic doesn't score like Svechnikov, but no one available in the UFA market scored more goals than Roslovic last season. He has been linked to the Maple Leafs in part because he was a U.S. National Development Team teammate with Austin Matthews, the Washington Capitals, who seek to bolster their forward group, and the Vancouver Canucks, who have had discussions with his camp. Pacioretty is in the journeyman phase of his stellar NHL career, which saw him score at least 30 goals in 4 straight seasons with the Montreal Canadiens from 2013 to 17. After injuries ruined his one-year stint with Carolina, he went to Washington, 22 points in 47 games, and Toronto, 13 points in 37 games, before once again hitting the free agent market this summer in search of a team that'll give him the ice time he needs to produce goals. Pacioretty made an impression with the Leafs in the postseason when he had 3 goals and 5 assists in 11 games, shooting over 21%. That performance could be enough to entice a contender to give him another contract to play around 13 minutes a night and create offense. The Edmonton Journal banged the drum for him to be the new Corey Perry in the Oilers' forward group recently. Olofsson scored 15 goals last season with the Vegas Golden Knights, and not all of them while playing with Jack Eichel. There was a thought that Olofsson could mesh with Eichel, who played with him in Buffalo, but they played only 189 minutes together at even strength, with Vegas generating 9 goals with them on the ice. Olofsson played more minutes with Tomas Hertl than Eichel last season. Those are 2 pretty good centers, and Olofsson hung with them and also played respectable defense. Based on the metrics, he has got a big shot and can contribute on the power play. It's a little surprising that he hasn't found a new home yet, given his skill set. Fabry came to Anaheim in a trade with Detroit last summer after his best goal-scoring season, 18 tallies, since he scored 18 goals with the Street. Louis Blues in 2015-16. He was the kind of player the Ducks wanted. Someone who could provide energy and defensive depth before they potentially traded him at the deadline, with salary retention, to a contending team. But injuries relegated him to just 44 games last season, during which he tallied 16 points. He last played February 25. When healthy, Fabry can produce offensively. But wherever he goes, it won't be anywhere close to his $4.25 million base salary last season. Evolving Hockey predicts he will earn around $1.3 million. Kiviranta is stuck in a unique hockey purgatory. He's a fourth-line forward who turns 30 next March and averaged 12.31 in ice time last season. That's a roster spot that could go to a younger player on many teams. But that younger player might match Kiviranta's production. He generated 16 goals for the Avalanche last season in a depth role, with 15 coming at even strength. He has strong per 60 minutes metrics and creates high-danger chances. The biggest knock on Kiviranta is his postseason play. He has 1 goal and 2 assists in his past 20 postseason games, dating to his time in Dallas. He didn't register a point in his last 10 postseason games with Colorado. For an impactful regular season player, that's quite a playoff disappearing act, and his ice time in the postseason reflects that. Luke Kunin, F. Age, 27 2024 to 25 cap hit, $2.75 million. Kunin was solid with the Sharks over the past 2 seasons. He had 11 goals in 75 games in 2023-24, and then 11 goals in 63 games last season before San Jose shipped him to Columbus at the trade deadline for a 4th-round pick. Kunin didn't register a point in 12 games in Columbus, and his ice time dipped under 10 minutes 4 times before the Blue Jackets made him a healthy scratch for the last 8 games of the season. Kunin can help someone's bottom 6 in the right fit, but there are concerns. Even as he was creating offense in San Jose, he was also among the worst forwards in expected goals above replacement, minus 7.7. There's always a home for power play creators in the NHL. Grzelcyk had 1 goal and 39 assists last season with the Pittsburgh Penguins, with 15 of those power play helpers. It was easily his best NHL season on special teams, getting an opportunity he didn't always have in Boston. His even strength metrics weren't stellar, with a 48.6 expected goals percentage and barely break even in shot attempts per 60 minutes. But some of his analytic struggles can be chalked up to playing with Erik Karlsson and in front of the Penguins' goaltender. Grzelcyk has shown that he can be more than competent defensively for someone best known for his offense. His agent Peter Fish told ESPN that they're looking for the best fit for Matt in terms of money, term, and opportunity. He's coming off his best year as a pro. I think he really distinguished himself on the power play in Pittsburgh. Fish said, Grzelcyk can move the puck, and his breakout passing remains an asset. The left-shot defenseman should find a home on someone's blue line, especially after his season on the power play. Fish said waiting beyond the free agent frenzy can sometimes benefit a player. Sometimes, it's not the worst thing to do. It's a little bit uneasy at times, but when you sit down and you can see exactly what teams have now. Fish said, when you wait a little bit and can say, well, this is definitely going to be a good spot for me. Jan Rutta, D. Age, 34 2024 to 25 cap hit, $2.75 million. Rutta played on 2 Stanley Cup winning teams with the Tampa Bay Lightning before becoming a free agent in 2022 and signing with the Penguins. They sent him to San Jose in the offseason as part of the 3-team deal that sent Karlsson to Pittsburgh. Rutta had a better second season in San Jose than his first, skating to a minus 3 in 54 games for the Sharks while playing with 8 defensive partners. Rutta also dealt with some injuries last season. Greer didn't seem to close the door on Rutta running it back in San Jose. He's been pretty steady for us here for 2 years. He's done a good job helping our young guys out and kind of being a little bit of a stabilizer, especially on the PK. As I told him, he's on a list with some other guys where it's a possibility we bring them back, he said. But weeks into free agency, Rutta's still in the market. Calvin DeHaan, D. Age 34 2024 to 25 cap hit, $800,000. Calvin DeHaan played only 3 games for the Rangers after being acquired from Colorado last season. He wasn't shy about expressing his frustration about that. I'm old in hockey. My career could be over this summer for all I know. Not having that opportunity to compete and use that as a tryout for the rest of the NHL was very frustrating, obviously. I'm just trying to prolong my career, trying to keep playing. I love the game, and so that part was annoying, he said. The 34-year-old defenseman knows that he's not a top 4 or a $10 million guy at this stage of his career, but he's a depth defenseman whose defensive metrics have remained solid, skating just under 15 minutes per game last season with Colorado and New York. The wild card, Yevgeny Kuznetsov, C. Age 33 2024 to 25 cap hit, $7.8 million. Kuznetsov's cap hit would have been that $7.8 million last season had the Carolina Hurricanes not terminated his contract after the 2023-24 season. Ultimately, both sides agreed this was the best course of action for both the player and the team. Hurricanes general manager Eric Tulsky said as the team got out of the $6 million in salary it owed him for this season, Kuznetsov signed a 4-year deal with SKST Petersburg in the KHL. But Kuznetsov had that contract terminated in April, allowing the 33-year-old forward the chance to come back to the NHL after just 1 year in Russia. He didn't have the easiest time in Russia, mainly because of some health issues connected to multiple concussions, according to Match TV's Pavel Lysenkov. Kuznetsov was once considered one of the most dynamic offensive talents in the NHL while with the Washington Capitals. But his play started to fall off in 2022-23, and he generated just 2 goals and 7 assists in 20 games for Carolina after the 2024 trade deadline. Although he had 4 goals in 10 playoff games for the Hurricanes, he was the leading scorer and Conn Smythe runner-up on the Capitals' 2018 Stanley Cup winning team. In September 2019, the NHL suspended Kuznetsov 3 games without pay for inappropriate conduct. Less than a month after he was banned from playing for Russia for 4 years because he tested positive for cocaine. Kuznetsov entered the NHL/NHLPA Player Assistance Program in February 2024, ahead of his trade to Carolina. Kuznetsov's agent has said that they're not looking to be picky on team and finances as he seeks an NHL return. Is there someone willing to take a chance on him this season? The buyouts. T.J. Brody, D. Age 35 2024 to 25 cap hit, $3.75 million. Brody was added to the Blackhawks last summer as a 2-year placeholder, allowing their young defensemen to mature in the AHL. Unfortunately, the fit was disastrous for the veteran defenseman and the team. Brody played at below replacement levels, skated to a -18 in Chicago, was outscored by nearly 20 goals with him on the ice. Brody averaged just 15:38 per game, the lowest ice time of his career. He was a healthy scratch over the last 24 games of the season and didn't even travel with the team. The Hawks bought out the final year of his 2-year deal. Brody still might get a look as a depth defenseman given his experience. Hopefully, it will be with a playoff contender rather than another rebuild. Mark-Edouard Vlasic, D. Age 38 2024 to 25 cap hit, $7 million. Greer was still playing with the Sharks when Vlasic made his NHL debut. So, it's poetic that Greer, as San Jose general manager, ended Vlasic's time with the team. He will go down not only as one of the best defensemen in franchise history, but one of the best players. Greer said when he announced that the team bought out the final year of his contract, $7 million AAV. Vlasic used to get Norris Trophy consideration for his defensive play. He turns 39 next March, was limited to 27 games last season because of injury, and the Sharks paid him not to play. It was a stellar run for him in San Jose before a steady decline, and a contract that made him unmovable until it was buyout time. Is there another chapter for Vlasic? Vlasic's agent Robert Sov told ESPN that the defenseman hopes to play in the 2025-26 season and is hoping for clarity on potential next stops in August. As far as the possibility of a professional tryout contract, PTO, with a team, Sov said Vlasic isn't there yet in his process. The goalies, Ilya Samsonov, G. Age, 28 2024 to 25 cap hit, $1.8 million. Samsonov appeared in 29 games for the Vegas Golden Knights last season after 3 straight seasons of playing in 40-plus games with the Washington Capitals and Toronto Maple Leafs. He was 16-9-4 with a .891 save percentage, playing essentially at a replacement level behind Adin Hill. Samsonov is an average backup after being an okay tandem goalie at his peak. James Reimer, G. Age, 37 2024 to 25 cap hit, $1 million. Reimer is the NHL goaltending equivalent of a journeyman NFL place kicker. The leg is not what it used to be. The range isn't there. But from a reliability standpoint, you could do a lot worse than handing a 1-year contract to a player whose save percentage hovered around .900 in 22 games for the Buffalo Sabres last season. Reimer is hoping to join his 6th NHL team in 6 seasons. Alexander Georgiev, G. Age, 29 2024 to 25 cap hit, $3.4 million. It's still mind-blowing that Georgiev is 3 seasons removed from winning 40 games and finishing 7th in the Vezina Trophy voting. He followed that with 38 wins for the Colorado Avalanche in 2023 to 24. After they won the Stanley Cup in 2022, the AVS anointed him as their next starter, trading 3 draft picks to the Rangers for him. Last season, you needed GPS to locate him. Georgiev was traded to the San Jose Sharks in the deal that sent Mackenzie Blackwood to Colorado. Georgiev won 7 of the 31 games he played for the Sharks. Between the two teams, he had an .875 save percentage and a 3.71 goals against average. According to Money Puck, he was the second worst goalie in the league in goals saved above expected, minus 17.9. Again, he used to start over 60 games in a season. Perhaps a team will believe in the right system. Georgiev can rediscover his game.
So coming up next, more on BroCo Podcast presented by Our Heart Media. We hope that you guys enjoyed the show thus far. Now, last episode I talked about the WNBA, and we all know about their statement that they made at the Superstar Celebrity All-Star Game. I say celebrity because these players are celebrities, in my opinion. These players have something very, very unique when it comes down to being more involved within their sport, being the WNBA. Last week I talked about paying players what they deserve. I really, really do emphasize that the most when it comes down to it. I hope they are able to win the battle, and hopefully they're able to do what they need to do when it comes down to the limelight of things. Now, we got to talk about the latest in the WNBA season. Now, I will say even deep into July, that is the month of July, and believe it or not, August is around the corner, guys. I cannot wait for August because as the WNBA season continues on and continue on to get ready to wrap, of course, we turn the page for football season, right? There's college football. I just talked about Deion Sanders and the Colorado University team. Football season is almost here. It starts next month, the month of August. I can't wait for that. I look forward to talk more on the BroCo Podcast when it comes down to the football sports and the collegiate football sports this season and the National Football League season this coming August. Now, even deep into July, the WNBA season still has a lot life itself within the season. Now, I got to say, with more than 40 points, 40% on the regular season remaining, there are still more statistical stories that's still to come out. Of course, we all know it here on the BroCo Podcast. We've been seeing the WNBA. I've been watching quite a few games and been watching a lot of First Take, a lot of Pat McAfee Show, a lot of ESPN, a lot of Sports Center, and a lot of the WNBA Hub. Of course, contenders aren't satisfied with their roster, is what we're hearing, and rotation. Now, as we see the likes of the New York Liberty and the Indiana Fever tinkering with the rotation and the lineup decision, folks, amid the injuries that every lady, all the lady players are enduring, they're sure to continue on within the long WNBA season. Now, even teams they find lower in the standings, such as the Los Angeles Sparks. They're improving, they're adapting to the season develops. Of course, fantasy managers, guys, get this, fantasy managers can adopt the same approach, continuing to maximize your roster even if it's on the margins. Of course, we highlighted some keynotes here, some key examples of productive players around the league worthy of more attention. If you are someone who is dabbling into the fantasy style of the WNBA. I'm dabbling a little bit with fantasy. I don't do, I mean, we talk about Prize Picks, we talked about DraftKings, but I mean, I'm not a gambling man, I will say that. So sometimes when I go to these fantasies, it's a little risky for me to be able to bet money on players, because this is very risky. Now, here's the backcourt. We're going to highlight some of the players if you're looking for more attention for your fantasy football as well. I know ESPN does this thing called the ESPN Bet, so you can be able to do that as well. Julie Allemand, of course, she plays for the Los Angeles Sparks, of course, rostered at 6.2 percentile in the ESPN leagues. It is natural to overlook Allemand in the first few months, Jackson and T. Now, first few months of the season, she was given that she was the team from the Eurobasket commitments of much of the summertime. Since joining the rotation on July 3rd, she led the team, the Los Angeles Sparks, in minutes and assists. You won't get a ton of scoring, I will say, when it comes down to Julie Allemand. But a full floor game has a lead to strong fantasy results this month alone of July. The Sparks led the league in offensive efficiency rating in July, suggesting that Allemand should sustain a major creation role for this up-tempo scheme when it comes down to it. The Sparks have an invitation matching up with the Aces earlier this coming week. By the time this show is airing. So maybe you can get more attention on Julie Allemand on the backcourt when it comes down to it. Let's talk about, of course, Bria Hartland. Of course, she plays for the Connecticut Suns at the average of 12.2%. Now, Hartley is a veteran bucket, right? She's a veteran at this. Now, she's a veteran that thrives in the multi-level scorer in recent weeks, is what we've seen with her in the Suns, right? The Suns have given Hartley the green light to create offense for herself and others within her team, with the fantasy results providing special when her shot is failing. The Connecticut Suns have two matchups with the Liberty to close out the week, and with New York ranked at 8th in the defensive rating over the past 10 games. Hartley could fill up the box score for her and the Connecticut Suns. And that was the backcourt for two of the ladies for two of the teams. Now let's talk real quick about the front court, right? That is the center. That is the one and only Dominic Malonga, right, for the Seattle Storm. I would say even as a teenager, Malonga is one of the best pure rebounders in the league, in my opinion, right? With the ability to pass double outcomes when empowering, Malonga can also protect the rim at the highest level, adding dimensions to her fantasy profile, right? Her playing time could remain limited, but Malonga's potential to produce big lines is only growing with her in the Seattle Storm. I can't wait to see what she does. Of course, let's talk about Natasha Mack, right? Forward, the Phoenix Mercury team. Phoenix Mercury team. Now, Mack is a greedy forward, right, who is earning more minutes earlier this month because of her relentless defense, the hustle on the glass, right? Mack also is great at maximizing her limited role. Since seeing more playing time on July 7th, Mack has an average of nearly 14 combined points and rebounds to go on with a stellar 3 combined steal and blocks her past 6 games. Sometimes fantasy teams need glue players, right? They need those glue players when it comes down to if you're dabbling into the fantasy, if you're dabbling onto the actual sport itself. Mack could prove productive in the two friendly matchups to close out this week. So I'm going to watch closely with Natasha Mack with her with the Phoenix Mercury. Now let's talk about if you're looking for your fantasy ladies for the WNBA, if you're looking to the ladies that need more attention here, let's talk about Emma Messaman, right? Emma Messaman, center for the New York Liberty at the average of 5%. Now, the Liberty won the Messaman lottery, is what people are saying. That's what ESPN people are saying. That's what reporters are saying. The former WNBA Finals MPV, right? And two-time All-Star signed to bolster the reigning champs title bid. Last time we saw Messaman in the league of 2022, she was two-way forced for the Chicago Sky. While she might not play the same high usage role for the Liberty team, it's clear, and I want to make this clear, it's clear that there will be meaningful minutes for her in the weeks ahead with her and the New York Liberty. Now, it's still unclear with Messaman will be available for the Liberty, but some have estimated by the end of this week against the Sun for Emma Messaman, center for the New York Liberty team. Now, again, if you guys are looking to bolster, those are the ladies that we highlight that we think will need more attention if you're dabbling on into your favorite fantasy team. If you're building up a fantasy team to continue on the WNBA season, we encourage you guys to do that. One of those things that I get very, very excited for. And that's something you do not want to miss for sure. Always, on each episode we do, I'm going to rep my WNBA because they've got something. I've been saying it for multiple episodes now that the WNBA, they have the idea, they have the acolyte, they have the attention, they have the money. I'm going to say it. Jackson T, y'all laughed at me last episode. Pay the ladies what they need.
This week, the UFC announced several key fights in October, and that got us thinking about other fights we'd love to see before the end of the year. There are already plenty of good ones. The crown jewel is next month's middleweight title fight between Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 319. There's also Tom Aspinall, finally, in an undisputed title fight against former interim heavyweight champion Cyril Gane at UFC 321. Bantamweight champ Merab Dvalishvili will make his third title defense of the year against Corey Sandhagen at UFC 320. But we can always hope for more. Here are 5 matchups that could really take the UFC schedule to the next level. The UFC hasn't announced this welterweight title fight, but I'm expecting it to happen at UFC 322 in November in New York. This is one of the most impactful and stylistically intriguing matchups in years. And it comes with a major story angle. Makhachev vacating the lightweight title and moving up in weight, something his predecessor and mentor, Khabib Nurmagomedov, never did. I'm hopeful the sports world will take notice of this matchup. Della Maddalena is not a household name, which can lead to a fight flying under the radar for casual fans. But if the UFC books the fight at Madison Square Garden, I believe that's a huge win. It's the company recognizing a need to properly promote this one, rather than host it in Abu Dhabi, where Makhachev fought every October from 2021 to 2023. As ridiculous as newly crowned lightweight champion Ilia Topuria has been, I agree with Nurmagomedov's recent comment that Della Maddalena is a harder challenge for Makhachev. This move up in weight is significant for Makhachev. I expect him to be undersized, and Della Maddalena is well-rounded, physical, and firmly in his prime. Khamzat Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya. I'm going to get flack for this one. This is a matchup we should have seen in 2023, when Adesanya was the middleweight champion. Chimaev's title shot in August is coming well past due. The UFC could have booked him a championship bid long before this, but the timing never worked out due to various circumstances, illness, travel issues, that kept Chimaev inactive. He's got his shot now, and if he beats du Plessis, the UFC can't book this matchup. It wouldn't be justifiable as a title fight. Adesanya is on a 3-fight losing streak. But this is my list, and I am allowed to hope for something wild to happen. Let's say Chimaev wins the belt, books his first title defense for December in Las Vegas, and his opponent drops out at the last minute. Can you imagine Adesanya getting a shot against the undefeated Chimaev on short notice? to bail the UFC out of a matchmaking bind? And if Chimie were to lose to Duplessis, I'd still be down for this fight. I remember how badly I want to see it 2 years ago. And yes, circumstances are very different, but it has been only 2 years. Plenty of history here to lean into in a December matchup. Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. The UFC hasn't announced this one either, but it seems likely for the end of the year. And I hope it happens this year, rather than getting postponed until 2026. It's surely the next bantamweight title matchup. We're all just waiting for it to arrive. It would be a great way to cap the calendar. Nunes will be an underdog, which is appropriate but hard to fathom. This matchup felt obvious from the moment Harrison, a two-time Olympic gold medalist in judo, transitioned to MMA in 2018, but it has been a slow wild burn to get here. Nunes finally acknowledged earlier this year that she left American Top Team in 2022 because she knew she'd eventually face Harrison. Harrison has trained there for her entire MMA career. This will easily be one of the top 5 women's MMA fights of all time, with potential to break into the top 3. It could even be considered no. 1. Sean O'Malley versus Cody Garbrandt. It would not make sense from a rankings perspective, but who cares? This is a good, old-fashioned grudge match. Years ago, everyone expected these two bantamweights would eventually fight. The fighters felt it, the fans felt it, and I'd wager the UFC brass felt it. Two knockout artists, each of whom surged up the rankings with a lot of hype. Now, two former champions. O'Malley is still the no. One ranked contender at 135 pounds, while Garbrandt has lost his past 2 fights, including a decision loss to the unranked Raoni Barcelos in June. O'Malley should be fighting a ranked opponent, but this matchup would draw more attention to him than any fight inside the top 10. And if it's going to happen, it's best to happen sooner rather than later. O'Malley and Garbrandt got into a brief altercation at a news conference in 2021, and the UFC could and would run that footage constantly in the build-up to this one. There is plenty of time for more sensible matchmaking for both of these guys. Let's book the fight people would most want to see. This weekend was supposed to be the UFC debut of Pico, whom ESPN once touted as possibly the greatest prospect in MMA history. Pico is one of the most entertaining watches in the sport, a boxer-wrestler powerhouse with knockout power to the body and head. He was supposed to face Movsar Evloev, an undefeated grappler and potential no. One contender, but Evloev withdrew. It's a shame we're not seeing Pico in action this weekend, but it gives the UFC time to reassess what to do with him and Evloev. I prefer the UFC book Evloev in a featherweight title fight against Alexander Volkanovski, who doesn't have his first title defense booked, but has been rumored that it'll be a rematch against Rodriguez. But I prefer the fresh matchup. Meanwhile, Rodriguez is a better fit for Pico's UFC debut. It's much more of an action fight. Evloev's style can be tedious at times, which is one reason he hasn't fought for the belt. If he grappled Pico for 3 rounds, it'd be a very disappointing debut for Pico. Let's switch things up and book Pico versus Rodriguez.
All right, so I'm turning the page from basketball and football down to soccer. You guys, I know a lot of people had asked me. Yes, I am a soccer fan favorite with the soccer sports. When I get to it, I mean, the focus right now, I'm focusing on the Major League Soccer, but I mean, it's the WNBA season, right? We're getting ready to have football season next month, so it's a lot of things that's going on. Now, I wanted to talk about this developing story about Alexander Isak, right? Alexander Isak, one of the lead premier teams for the Major League Soccer. Some people will say he will be the next Mohamed Salah. Of course, he just needs to become a Liverpool player to prove it. Now, while Liverpool's summer spending spree amounts to $270 million, so far on Florian Ritz, Hugo, and I might butcher these names, Hugo Ikiti, again, these names they kick my ass every time. Milos Kerkez and Jermaine Frimpong. Sources have told ESPN that the Premier League champions They are to continue to pursue a move for Isaac. That's Alexander Isaac, despite the Newcastle rejecting the initial inquiry 2 weeks ago. That's something that we've been reading on here in the studio. We've been reading on here at K.L.P Entertainment. If the wheels begin to turn in Liverpool's favor, right? If that favor goes on Liverpool, if the wheels turn on that and they begin to turn for that favor, then a deal for Isaac suddenly becomes a real possibility, right? It will likely involve a fee in the region of $150 million to sign the Sweden forward, right? A fee, I would say a fee that would take their transfer outlay since the end of last season beyond, of course, to $400 million. Let me tell you, when it comes down to the Major League Soccer teams and the Premier League, they make a lot of money, right? A lot of people go to the games. A lot of people, they fill the seats, right? They fill the seats of these stadiums, and it works. Now, it is a staggering number for a club that has traditionally been outspent by the Premier League rivals, such as Manchester City, Chelsea, Manchester United, right? The rivals of that with Liverpool. But there are two reasons why Liverpool, I would say, are prepared to bring the bank for Isaac amid their busy summer. Now, first of all, Liverpool can afford it, right? Like I just said it, you know, the Premier League makes tons and tons and tons of money to where they can't say they can't afford it. They can't afford it. Now, an explanation they follows, of course, and secondly, the sources told ESPN correspondents that this transfer window has been identified by the NFL hierarchy as the one in which they will build their team for the next 5 years, and Isaac has the key to it. Isaac is the key to Liverpool doing their thing. Now, with Salah, again, Isaac said that he's going to be the next Salah, now 33. He's committed to a new 2-year contract this summer. There is a realization that Liverpool, that their forward, Salah, must be replaced at some stage in the near future, right? Again, a lot of these, that's what I said about the WNBA and NBA and football, right? A lot of these players that's been there, you're 33, you're getting up there in age now, right? I know, along with the Premier League and other leagues as well, these leagues have got an age requirement. Some of them. I mean, you look at the NBA, you look at LeBron James, he's still kicking it, right? Now, while the members for Isaac are potentially huge by signing him now, Liverpool will have their Salah replacement locked in, and a task of replacing the Salah forward line will be completing that if that deal is able to commence and go through. Now, in the space of one window, at this possible combined cost of $350 million, the signings of Wirtz, Akiti, and if they get their wish, Isaac, if Liverpool would get their attacking unit for the next 5 years for the very least, right? It is uncertain. I got to say, it's very uncertain over Isaac's future with Newcastle continue to grow due to his absence from the club's preseason tour in Singapore and their preseason tour in South Korea. Now, we read on ESPN.com, of course, ESPN reported that last week that Isaac has made it clear that he wants to consider options to move away from the St. James Park. Liverpool's next move in their pursuit of the 25-year-old, again, he's very young, 25, that's very young, will decide whether he moves, of course, to a different team. They will decide if he moves to Anfield this summer or if Newcastle reject any prospects of the player leaving the club while he still has 3 years remaining on into his contract. Of course, we also know and we also learned that Newcastle managers Eddie Howe said just over a week ago that after leaving Isaac out of a preseason friendly against the Celtic in Glasgow, he was confident his star striker would still be at the club when the transfer window closes 2 months from now, or a month and a half from now, September 1st. But speaking to Singapore at the weekend, Howe hinted that Isaac's future being taken out of his hands by saying, ultimately, this is a quote from Eddie Howe, ultimately the decision will rest on the board. I look forward to see what happens with Alexander Isaac. I want to see what happens with this player, 25 years old of age. That's quite amazing when it comes down to him being a top Premier League player. So we're going to watch very closely to see what happens. That's going to wrap it up here on the Bro Code Podcast. We hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching the video version of this podcast. And also, if you are listening to this audio version of this podcast, we thank you guys so much in advance on iHeartMedia, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. We thank you guys as well. Please remember to like, comment, and share with your friends, letting you guys know we uploaded another episode of the Bro Code Podcast. T, Jackson, and of course, Johnny over there. It's been a pleasure to have you a part of the show as well. It's just the Bro Code Podcast. We're growing. You know, it's a thing that we're growing here. That's going to wrap it up here on Monday night's episode. We hope that you guys enjoy it. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back in the radio station studio for K.L.P. Aftermath Podcast, coming right back tomorrow. I can't wait. We've got so much to talk about on that show as well. So stay tuned when that show gets ready to get announced and released and published and streamed. Y'all know it. Until then, we hope that you guys have a great night. This has been the Bro Code Podcast, presented by iHeartMedia. Have a great night.
Welcome to the Bro Code Podcast. Join Kennedy Lucas, Terry Lester, and Jackson Smith as they break down the biggest plays, share locker room banter, and keep it 100 on sports hot takes. Gear up, because this is where the real talk begins.